Hi, guys. Welcome to today's episode. It's going to be open, it's going to be vulnerable, it's going to be raw, and it's going to be a lot of real stuff. I mentioned in my first podcast that in October of 2021, my husband and I went and got brain scans at the Amen clinics. And in that scan, it revealed a lot to me about myself and my patterns, and essentially said that I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And I'd always known I had some anxious tendencies and patterns and things like that. And it was hard to believe for me. And because I've always considered myself happy and positive and able to work through most things. And all of that's very true. And mentioned in the previous podcast, I almost didn't feel worthy of the diagnosis. And anyway, long story short, I dove all in to understanding what complex PTSD really was, what it was caused from, what environmental factors, what physical factors, what emotional factors really took a play in that role for me in my own life. So, I'm going to expose a lot of real and raw personal information in this episode. And I just appreciate the respect and courtesy of honoring that if you choose to listen to this. And yeah, we went back for our second round of brain scans 2 weeks ago. So, 20 months or so later, I have reversed those signs and all the actual scans. And when I release this, I'll put some pictures out there, but I no longer have PTSD. And for me to truly understand that, and like I know I've done the work, I feel the work, I feel like I've done all the things, but to see it and for the doctor to be like, "What have you been doing?" And I've essentially feel like I've been doing everything except for medicating myself. No prescription medications at all. And this whole episode is just gonna be about sharing what that journey was like for me, the real and raw truths of it, what I uncovered, ways that I healed those things, and the journey continues. But the good news is I've completely calmed down my emotional brain. I mean, it's definitely still lit up in certain areas. And because I am a highly empathetic person, I have a sensitive nervous system and my brain is just more sensitive than other people's, which is a fact. So this is for you empaths out there. I want you to really hear that I actually have been reading a book called The Empath's Survival Guide, and I have never felt more seen or heard. And I brought that with me today. I'm going to share an affirmation at the end of this podcast from that. But essentially, how the hell did I do this, right? So you get this diagnosis. Um, and of course, I dive all in on everything. Like my life coach says, I'm not the one wading in the water with a life vest on. I'm climbing to the tallest part of the mountain, ripping my clothes off and diving headfirst into how I can fix it, how I can heal it, and what I can do. So for PTSD on a brain scan, what does it look like? It looks like all areas of your brain are essentially lit up. The northern, the southern, and east and west hemispheres of your brain are lit up in your emotional brain scan. So that's what the first one looked like. And there was like a diamond, it's called the diamond pattern PTSD. So in the second one, the frontal lobe was completely calm. And that was really awesome to see because I've been doing a lot of work with processing, and that's the area of your brain that you use processing and a lot of cognitive flexibility and things like that. And then the areas on the sides and the temporal lobes were still a little bright, but he said that could also be because I have a motivated, driven personality, which I definitely do. And my life coach tried to take a little chuckle. She was on the call, so it was me, myself, and Matt, or me, myself, me, Matt, and Kathy, my life coach, on the call with the doctor. It was an and do the scans, and then you have your reviews like a week later. So essentially, went through it. He was excited, and I asked him, I was like, "What percentage is this?" Because it was honestly a lot more than I thought. Because I feel like I've still gone through a hell of a lot of life, and so I went into it with no expectation that there was really gonna be a big change. But he said it was over 50% improvement on my emotional brain health, which it's gonna make me have tears. But it's been a journey. And for those of you who have been on the journey with me, you understand what I've gone through, what I've sacrificed as far as changes that I've made, but it hasn't been really a sacrifice at all. It's all been for the greater good and allowed me to reach a level of higher self for me that has just put me in a position where I feel very blessed and that all of this abundance of like joy and all the right things are flowing into my life right now. So essentially, what did I do? In 20 months after that diagnose or before when the diagnosis, I stopped drinking, stopped using any kind of medical marijuana that I would usually occasionally. I really dove deep in with my talk therapist. We scheduled weekly calls. Um, Matt and I decided to do kind of marriage counseling, but to be honest, that was completely hit or miss. And that hasn't really been super regular. But I knew that even if that wasn't in place, I still had to continue on my own journey and allow him to be on his journey. And that's what we've done. Um, I dove deep into energy healing. I started doing more Reiki and being open to things like integrative energy therapy at the Om Shop, and where you essentially go in and they invite your spirit guides and healers to come in, and you release the energy stored in your tissues, and there can be energy and trauma stored in your tissues. So I've done that. I actually got certified in that, um, which was a really beautiful blessing because Donna from the old shop just called me one day and she's like, Crystal, I think you would really be interested in this course that we're doing. And I was leaving a hair appointment. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. We have a lot going on. And I got in my car. I'm like, wait a second. She just called and invited me to do a certification that she thought I would. So that's a sign. What is it? And sign up for it now. So I did. And I went, and it was essentially understanding how to release these energies from our own bodies and including our minds, our hearts, our liver, our gallbladder. If you study Chinese medicine at all, you understand that there's rhythms and there's functions um and the way that energy and chi flows through our body. So going and doing this, I really use it on myself more so than anyone else. I've actually done one session with an actual client and it was pretty intense. And she had a really impactful emotional release the entire time. But I really started practicing it on my own and essentially inviting spirit guides to connect to my heart link and guide me through life. And I think that's something, and not in a religious way whatsoever. And I just want to be clear about that. I was raised in a household where um, my nan was spiritual, as I mentioned before, and believing in angels and things like that. And there were some circumstances in my life with religion that just kind of turned me off from it. Didn't really resonate with me at all. Too many rules, too much judgment. To each their own. It didn't resonate with me. And I honestly believe that spirituality is so unique to each individual that if you feel like you need more connection in some way, my advice is just forget everything you've learned and tap into what you need. And that's kind of essentially what I've done here. And it all it all comes about in an interesting way. With the energy healing and sound healing, you're in these environments where they're utilizing crystals and natural energy and more water energy and earth energies, spiritual meditations and just meditation in general, which is really great. I lowered the intensity of my exercise. I started cycle syncing and syncing my eating, and this is actually more recently, but syncing my eating patterns and my exercise and stuff like that with my monthly cycle. Um, with the brain scans, we ended up doing a lot of blood work and things like that, and some things that popped up in my blood work were potentially Hashimoto's thyroiditis and adrenal fatigue. And now, what I know after understanding what empaths and highly sensitive people like myself really experience is we take on the energy from our environment from like infancy, right? So understanding my childhood and all of the energy that surrounded me all the time, my parents were very young. They didn't know what they were doing. They did their best. They didn't have the tools. There was my grandparents. I loved them. They did their best, but they didn't have all the tools. There was me raising myself, I feel like, for a while, and I didn't have all the tools. And seeking out relationships, whether they be toxic friendships or codependency situations or addictions. And, I was always I realized I had these empathetic gifts really young, but I always kind of found ways to either numb them or dull them down because it was too much for me. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but more of the modalities that I experienced were understanding. So starting with functional medicine, I had Dr. McKay on one of my other episodes. She's really helped me tap into a lot of the blood work. So nurturing the adrenal fatigue with adaptogens that she's helped me to just kind of boost my normal hormones and my regular rhythms and just kind of assist that into being their most optimal selves. Understanding autoimmune, like what is autoimmune? I'm not going to say I have an issue with my thyroid because it's showing an autoimmune disorder. So people like myself who have a tendency to take on a lot and a lot of different energies and not understand how to protect themselves from that or have a safe environment. Um, we have a tendency to have autoimmune disorders, and essentially that's like our body is trying to fight off toxicity of some sort. So still diving deep into what that could potentially be. I did a thyroid panel with an endocrinologist here a couple weeks ago, and I get those results back soon, so I'm really excited, and I'll do another podcast on that to see what that's changed, because the last time I did it was 2021. So it'll be fun to test those results again because of all of this healing to see if that's really changed at all. I've tried EMDR therapy. So that was interesting. There's a lot of different types of EMDR. The one that I did was here in Sarasota. I laid on a couch. I had these headphones in and it made a noise and it like buzzed something in my hand. And it was interesting because I feel like for me personally, it was specifically for trauma recall. I felt like every time she had me recall a traumatic event, I would have compassion for it. So I felt like I may have needed that previous or prior to some of the other deep work that I went into to get to the I don't know. I felt like I almost didn't need that. So I only did a few sessions, I think 4 sessions, and it was interesting, and I could see how if you're in the midst of digging up the trauma, but I feel like at the time when I went, I had already done a lot of deep inner child work, a lot of deep, mom triggers, childhood stuff. So I dug up and was able to see kind of a different side of that. Journaling has been pivotal in this journey for me. Having a safe place to write down my thoughts, my perspectives, my fears, my strengths, my wins. It's not all the time that you feel like you can be comfortable sharing your wins, right? But you should be comfortable sharing them with yourself at least. And what I found recently is, sometimes we can call and we can vent to someone, but how often do we call and say, "Hey, guess what happened? Guess what the awesome things that happened in my life today?" I think for something that's almost like a stigma around that, like we hold guilt for wanting to talk about the great things, but, creating a community of people and having my journal so I can talk about those little wins and I can celebrate the great things going on in my life. And also having a safe place that if I need to vent, but not emotionally dump on people, but the journal is a safe place. You can do all the emotional dumping. The talk therapy and life coaching goes hand in hand with that. We did several exercises with journaling, especially early on. So, I had to write down specifically like what were my triggers with alcohol related triggers, financial related triggers, um, unsafe related triggers, sexual triggers, things that I've found kept creeped up in my life in different ways as I got older, or things that were affecting my marriage or my relationships or my relationships with my kids, and understanding like cleanliness triggers and things like that. So that was really awesome. Again, if you don't have a talk therapist or someone that you trust, you can grab a piece of paper and write something down for yourself. These are baby steps and it starts small, but journaling, I mean, I think I've filled 6 journals in the past 2 years. Not quite 2 years. So that's been pivotal. I actually just bought one in May when I went to Savannah with girlfriends, and I'm almost finished with it. I started it May 22nd, and so I'm almost finished. I'm like, I'm gonna ride this out until August 22nd because I'm weird about numbers like that. Alone time to nurture the empath in me. So I'm an extrovert for those of you who know me. And if you can't tell by the podcast, I love to talk, I love to socialize, I love to connect with people. However, there's a part of me that really needs that alone time. And I realized I appreciated that. Actually, when I was young, I would go outside. I grew up on several acres, so I could go outside and just be alone and be barefoot in the yard. And as I got older, I would, got my car. I remember being in school and feeling overwhelmed in school sometimes, and I would just leave like fifth period and drive to the beach, or leave and go to the pool or something, and just have that. And it was always like being outside that really helped me. So escaping in nature is huge, and we're very blessed to have a, beautiful property here and a beautiful area to live in Sarasota. So even though it's hot, I still have to get my outside time every day, or even just go sit by a window and have some fresh air. But I really prefer to be grounded and rooted and touching the dirt, touching the sand, touching the grass, touching a tree. It really helps me connect and kind of regroup in my within myself, and it's therapeutic. Like, I feel like it gives me life and it gives me energy. So understanding how to nurture that within myself. Accountability groups. I'm a part of a group called it's YPO, Young Presidents Organization, but I have a forum group which is really awesome. And we've been together for over 2 years now. I guess almost, yeah, over 3 years now, which has been really awesome. And it's a group of ladies, it's a confidential group, nobody, never, nothing. There's 6 of us, now there's 5 of us, and we meet monthly. We kinda take our summers off so we can live and breathe and whatnot, but having a list of questions that we go through with ourselves and, what's been the greatest accomplishment in the past 30 days? What's been most draining on your energy the past 30 days? What are you looking most forward to for the next 30? Just that monthly accountability where we can all sit around and share. We know it's a confidential environment. We can share our wins, we can share our losses, we can share our struggles, we can share all the things. So having that, again, the community and the accountability of that group in my life has really allowed me to grow as an individual and know that I'm not alone. This particular group of ladies, we share a lot of commonalities as far as lifestyle goes, and I don't always share that with other friends. And so it's really been beneficial for me to have people that understand different levels of my life. And just like I have another group of girlfriends that I share more commonalities with in that group. So just creating kind of my tribe of ladies and community that can relate to me on different levels. Grounding, I mentioned that, being out in nature. And even if I can't get out in nature, just sitting and visualizing, my sits bones rooting into the ground, or my feet being barefoot in my house and my feet being planted on the ground, and just taking a few deep breaths and just almost picturing myself being a tree and the roots of my feet rooting down into the ground and just absorb and just it and it helps me stabilize. Because when I was back into my patterns and the PTSD, I would feel like I'm not safe. I have to go. Fight or flight was flight was my biggest um people pleasing, but flight also. And so that when I would get into the really turbulent times of the PTSD triggers, I would really want to run or escape or get out of there, or I can't do this. I'm gonna go, I have to leave. And so being rooted and grounded and finding stability and work, allowing my mind to process through and work through those times. And then it just became a habit, and I started doing it just because I loved it. So that was really great, and realizing, well, wow, I'm not having these triggers anymore, which for me, triggers are just opportunities for us to understand where we need to continue to grow and learn about ourselves. They're not bad. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something within you that still needs healing. It's like that wound that, isn't quite healed yet, and they're going to happen. And so honoring that and understanding, yes, I still have things that come up, just so because I've healed the diamond pattern part of my brain and I no longer have the PTSD doesn't mean I'm not still an emotional person and have my moments and my, my fair share of things that still could bring up turbulence or nervousness or fear or anything else. We all go through emotions, but now I allow myself to feel them rather than pressing them down or trying to fix them or solve them or projecting them onto anyone else. Eating whole foods and clean protein. So in my life, I don't wouldn't consider myself a dieter by any means, but I've done my fair share of food experiment, having eating disorders throughout high school and college and taking Adderall. I went through periods of time where I wasn't eating enough, and then I would, I think one year in high school I ate like only um was it frosted mini wheats or something? It was pretty terrible as a kid growing up, I would eat, like, baked potatoes all I, like, go on streaks of eating things, but once I got into college and really started d studying the exercise science and nutrition, which the nutrition I took in college is not anything compared I really didn't learn anything compared to what I know now about how foods fuel my body and just understanding more of these different holistic approaches. And so I dabble in intermittent fasting, which I feel like is very healing, but I also have to be careful with that because of the adrenal fatigue, but in syncing it with my cycle of the month and things like that. And read a book called Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Peltz that's really great. And she's very knowledgeable and has really helped me kind of find a good balance. So I really try to avoid gluten, dairy. I found out I was allergic to eggs, which is kind of heartbreaking because I love them. Um, and just do like really clean proteins if I eat proteins. And I grew up in the gym environment and lifting weights and doing fitness stuff. And so it was like, you need to eat your body weight in protein. And it's like 130 grams of protein is a lot of protein to eat in a day, and so you'd have to supplement with a couple shakes, and it's like, I just felt so full all the time, it didn't feel good, so just switching that up and just becoming more balanced in the way that I'm eating, beautiful so the way I look at it now is, like, when I sit down to eat, I wanna eat something pretty, like, I want it to be beautiful, I want it to be nourishing, and I want it to be something that fuels my body, so again, with the cycle syncing, I kinda utilize a certain chart. And if you're interested in this, more about this, let me know, or my Dr. Stephanie McKay can help you with it with Restore Wellness. But understanding what foods to eat the certain time of the month that are going to fuel my body. Like, this week, for example, I'm going to remineralize my body more because I'm losing more minerals. And so just understanding that in a different way has really been helpful for my overall just health because I feel like my body's very sensitive to anything like alcohol or white sugars and things like that. I get really puffy and inflamed. So I just know that that's not right for my body. So I don't put it in there. Um, Taking a lot of intentional time has been pivotal for me in this journey. And that's with myself, that's with everyone, my kids, my husband, just whatever time I'm going to spend with someone, I want it to be intentional. I don't want to sit there scrolling through, laying next to. I want to have genuine conversations. I want to it's one thing to snuggle on the couch and watch a movie with the kids because that is intentional time with them. And we all need that downtime. And I think for so long, I felt like I needed to be busy all the time. Like if I wasn't being busy, I wasn't worthy and I wasn't being productive. And I think that comes from, listening to my grandfather talk about lazy people all the time. And, oh, he's lazy. He needs to get up and move his ass, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, just because he has to be going all the time and doesn't like to be sitting in his thoughts doesn't mean that that's a way of life. But I really sucked that in as a kid. So I would, wake up and I'd be busy all day and felt like if I was home, I need to be cleaning or needed to be doing something or needed to be going somewhere. I needed to be socializing. And no, just stop that. Just be intentional with your time. And I realized that that really sets me up for success when I can prioritize the people that I'm with because I'm not, if I know I'm picking Tatum up, I want to get my emails and stuff done before I pick her up. So I'm not, trying to check my phone or look at things when she's around. I want to make sure that I carve out the time I need and set boundaries for myself to do work projects, to do self-help projects, to do, intentional time with the kids and prepare my food or whatever it is, just being more intentional with my time. So I highly recommend if that's another with journaling is a great thing, but if anything, like you have the control and everything I'm giving you in this podcast of what I've done for myself. It's really yes, some of is extensive, like the brain scans and the the functional medicine stuff, but it's really not practical. Like, it's all things that most people would have resources or access to in some way, shape, or form. Like, you can pull up a YouTube of a sound bath, and you can pull up an energy healing or something, anything on I mean, we sit and we scroll our phones and we do this, and we spend so much time on other things, but creating intentionality around what it is, the content and the quality of what we're taking in, and that's something that I've taken really seriously is I'm very selective now of the quality that I want in my life, and I've spent so much time eliminating toxicity of all kinds, whether it be chemicals in my lotions or shampoos or our water quality to not drinking alcohol or have any other substances in my body to people, places, and things. We've purged our house probably 20 times in the past 2 years, Matt and I both, just purging old stuff, getting rid of it, trying to add light and love and freshening things up and just starting fresh. There is really something to that. Um, I've started, I was once upon a time at every charity event and doing all the things and all the back to school events, and I'm scaling back. I'm in a very blessed position to be doing community outreach work, and I love it, and I have my select few that I will attend, but I feel like if I can help on a larger scale, like sponsoring and sending people who've never had the opportunity to do those things, then that's the position I'm in now, that phase of my life of going and doing all the things all the time. It's coming to an end for me. And it's bittersweet. I'll always participate and I'll always do it. It is one of my jobs. However, I'm just doing it in a different way. And that's been empowering. I realized that going and being around large crowds is very draining for me. So having the empathetic nature that I have, I get drained really easily when it and I never realized that before because I was always having cocktails and just thought I was hungover. But now I'm not and realize it's like an empathy hangover, and that's a real thing. For those of you who know, you know. Um, so less crowds, less events. Our kids are at the age where we might go to Universal Studios once a year, and that's about all I can handle. And honestly, I think I've only gone twice sober, and it was a totally different experience, and I really don't care to go back that often. I'm not that Disney mom, and that's okay. Those of you who are, God bless your souls. I don't get it, but I appreciate you, and I'm sure your kids do too. So one of the one of the big things I stop trying to fix my husband. He'd probably tell you otherwise, but I really have stopped trying to fix him. Because I think I know me coming into relationships, and my biggest thing is you have potential and I can help you, and we've lifted each other up and we've supported each other so much in so many different ways along the journey. And I would always pick what if this one thing would change or this one thing. No, just accept him and love him for who he is and what he is, because guess what? He deserves that. Just like I deserve that. Like, I deserve to be loved exactly who I am through my healing journey, through all the things, and I've surrendered to it. Our journeys are different, and we're choosing different paths in some circumstances, and in some ways, we are on the same path. He's not drinking and or anything at this moment, but we're both kind of in the agreement, like, we're not setting hard limits on ourselves, but we're both working on ourselves in our own unique way. But I've found myself, it used to drive me fucking crazy. It really did. Like, it used to drive me crazy because I would always want certain things to change, and the more I wanted it to change, the more passive aggressive it became and the more rebellious it came, and then it became like a parent-child relationship, and that's not a fun marriage at all. So, one of the things that I've really tapped into recently is just surrendering to the situation. Like, he's gonna figure things out for himself, and I'm gonna figure things out for myself. And yes, we are working with our life coach and counselor and on our own journeys and on our journeys together. And it's a constant unraveling of, you know, I understand that I'm not the person he signed up for. I am a completely different person today than I was 10 years ago when we became best friends and then started dating. I'm completely different. I've matured in so many different ways. I've healed in so many different ways. I'm not the crazy down for anything kind of girl anymore. And I need to show him some grace and compassion there. And he's not the same person that he was. And that's something I think as we evolve as people and we evolve in relationships, and part of our marriage vows, actually, Kathy said, marriage is falling in love with someone over and over and over. And so we have to find ways to have compassion and love for people in every stage of their life, even if it's not in just alignment with ours. And, we have a 3-year-old and we have 3 older children who share our home as well in our life. And they've been siblings for about 9 years now. And we have a really beautiful life. We both work within his family business. And, we have a lot out there that it's not an easy life all the time either, and I'm assuming people would understand that. But, there's a lot of different pressures for him to be the CEO of a family business. There's a lot of emotions that come along with watching our parents age and their health decline and everything that comes along with that. But what I do know is our children are watching, and they're watching how we're handling it. They're watching how we respect each other through this journey. They have seen us change and navigate this life, and we've shown the teenagers what it's like to evolve and change. And I think they really appreciate that in their own ways. And I'm very open with them and I talk to Tatum about everything, and especially when it comes to feeling the vibes and the energy and things like that. And she gets it. She can feel my energy shift sometimes, and she's like, "Mama, you all right?" I'm like, "Girl, I'm good. I got this." She's like, "All right, I'm just checking in." So just letting our kids know that it's constant work. Marriage is a constant evolution, and it just takes ownership. So for me, I'm owning my part and knowing what it is I need to heal about myself that will allow me to keep my heart open for him to be able to love me. Because at the end of the day, we are only as lovable as we will allow ourselves to be. Like, I cannot allow him to love me, and he will not love me any more than I love myself. So I think for the first time, I truly unconditionally love myself. The insecurities have dissipated, and there's more power and ownership in the person that I am. And a lot of that comes honestly from sharing these stories and sharing this journey with you all. Um, Working for a purpose in all areas of my life is really a blessing. And that's something that I've always kind of stuck to, from a young child. I love to babysit and love to be around kids, and I love to play with kids. I was kind of raised like an only child. I hung out with my cousins sometimes and my siblings sometimes, but I was kind of raised as an only child with my grandparents. So I enjoyed babysitting, and I remember thinking like, wow, I'm just going to be like a babysitter for life, or be like fun Auntie Crystal and then give them back. And here I am. We have 4 kids. So that changed a little bit, but that's okay. But it really drew me into wanting to work with children. So I babysat when I was younger, and then I worked in retail. And my first job at the mall was Gap. And then I worked at Abercrombie and modeled for them for a few years through college, and got into the gym world and started personal training and teaching classes. And that's what I went to school for. And, so I've always worked with a purpose. Like, I really loved retail, and so I did that, and I really loved the gym and exercising, so I did that, and I still do that. And then, the corporate wellness and creating a community. I loved the community that I served when I was there, doing fitness management, and just working, I worked with people using more of the exercise science part of it with Parkinson's and people that had had strokes or cardiac conditions, and so more of the therapeutic side, but I'll always have that passion for fitness and still love teaching classes at Shapes and just having that community and connection with people. And that led into the philanthropic side, when I left corporate, the corporate gym world and doing doing the corporate gym. I went to Shapes, did that for a while. Then I went to Girls Inc. and did the Girls on the Run program. And I really loved incorporating both of those. Girls on the Run was a program that provided, it was like a volunteer-based program that for girls from 3rd to 5th grade, and it taught them, like, empowerment messages every week, and they got to do a 5K at the end of their session, and it was really awesome. So it combined the 2, and then there were a few years where I wasn't working, and that was really, really hard for me. So probably the hardest part of my adult life. However, I did get to tag along and travel a lot with Matt during those times, and I loved it, and I honestly worked out, like, 3 times a day. Like like, I didn't know what to fucking do with myself. I was class mom for all 3 kids. I I would wake up and run with him first thing in the morning, or we'd go to cycle, and then I'd go to a HIIT class, and if I didn't go to a cycle class early in the morning, I'd go to another one. I mean, I was a maniac, and I was, like, 10% body fat. It was totally unrealistic, and that's probably when my adrenals really just died, to be honest. Um, so I realized that I got more into the, philanthropic stuff and working with different charities, again, mostly serving children in education, and Matt had the idea of, like, "Why don't you come do this for us at Bell's?" And so that's what I decided to do, and it's been a really awesome journey the past couple years. Again, I get to learn about what the family history has been with that, and it allows me that purpose to have a broader reach than I could on a personal level, and getting involved in organizations like Take Stock in Children and mentoring and learning some things that I didn't really, know before, but then also spreading that to the other people in the community there and just letting them know, like, the great things that we've done philanthropically, and so it really gives me a sense of purpose to be able to give back in that way and have a broad scale and allow other people who, you're working at a corporate office, you don't really think, you could go volunteer on your lunch break. And so just allowing people other opportunities to give back to you, because I think that as humans, we really crave that sort of connection. And if we have a blessed life to be able to touch someone else's life, that's something there is very beautiful about that. And, what's up next with this is I feel like all of this healing and transformation I've been able to do and all of the self-empowerment, like, I've done it. I have the science that shows I've done it. I feel accomplished. I've done the IET training. I still have my personal training background. I have all of this network of knowledge and stuff I've taken in. So I think the next steps for me, in addition to the community outreach and teaching my classes, is more of like empowerment coaching. So that's really the where I'm going with all of this is teaching people they have the opportunity and they have everything they need to start changing their life right now, today. And instilling that in folks, and I have a couple empowerment clients now, and I love them, and they are just on it, and they're excited, and they're motivated, and we have a little homework each section or each session, and, they come back, and I love hearing the wins, like, all the things that I needed in my journey, I wanna be able to provide, and if I can't provide those things for them, I will outsource them to people that can, and, creating more retreats and more groups and just exposing this holistic self-healer and essentially making a little self-healer circle here in Sarasota, or virtually or whatever, but that's where this path is taking me. So working for a purpose and working with a purpose in all areas, being intentional with my time and my life is really the direction that this is all heading. And a lot of that I feel like has stemmed from my confidence that's come from being involved with Resilient Retreat, which is a nonprofit that I'm on the board of. They're incredible. It's been such a community for me to feel seen, feel heard. They understand all of the trauma. I've done a trauma and resiliency course through them, from their volunteer stuff and just understanding their staff and the other fellow board members, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful network of people and doing their programs. I signed up for two programs as a trauma and survivor, and I've done the neurofeedback, I've done memoir classes, I've done yoga and energy healing, sound baths. Just making those connections with the different volunteers and things like that has been phenomenal. Um, in the past 20 months, I've probably read, or past 2 years really, I've probably read and actually made a list, over 56 books. That is more books than I've ever read in my life. I will just tell you that. I hated reading until I found stuff I was interested in. You know, when you start reading about something that hits your heart and your soul, like I'm not a fiction person. A lot of my favorite authors, Young Pueblo, Dr. Shafali, Brianna Weiss, Brene Brown, Glennon Doyle, Gabby Bernstein, Thich Nhat Hanh, I probably said that wrong, Michael Singer, Jay Shetty. I mean, the list is endless, and I'll have to post that sometime because I've read a lot of awesome books, and actually the book I'm reading right now, Judith Orloff, The Empath Survival Guide: Life Strategies for Sensitive People is amazing. So she's new favorite author alert. Um, Another one of the things I've done the past couple years is I've asked for help. You know, having a baby when you have 3 kids and going all over the place, I just couldn't do it. And I realized being a highly sensitive person, I take in and I absorb other people's energy, learning how to shield that. But I needed help. Like I needed help with the baby. I needed help with commuting the other kids. I needed help from their other parents, you know, and I stopped being prideful and started asking for more help when I needed it. You know, it's not 1955. I don't need to do everything all the time. Like, I'm not Susie Housewife. I don't care to be Susie Housewife or Susie Housewife out there. God bless your soul. I respect you to all end, but that's just, it's not me. Like, I need to prioritize my time. I need to prioritize my family's time. And for me and the life that I live, that involves and requires a lot of help. Um, Holding a space for myself and learning how to protect my energy has been huge. Resting, not pushing through. So, this is something I mentioned earlier, but knowing when to rest my mind, my body, my spirit. I'm actually supposed to go to a back to school event after this, but to be honest, I'm going to go home. I'm not, I can't, I don't have it in me today. I did my kids' orientation and all of their back to school stuff this week, and I can't do it. It's not in the cards for me today, and that's okay. And I don't have to apologize for it. I can say thank you for the opportunity. I'm not going to make it. And I'm excited that there are so many people there that are going to be able to help. And knowing myself and when to scale back, because if I do go against the way I'm feeling and I go to something that I'm not emotionally and mentally and physically prepared for, I'm going to go home an empty shell, and my family does not deserve that. So, this is a perfect example of understanding when to prioritize your health and your sanity and your family and yourself. You know, if you one of the girls that or young ladies that I'm working with, she said, she's like, you know, everyone goes for drinks and stuff after work, and I don't really want to do that. And every time I do, I find myself sitting there where everyone else is chatting and doing all the things, and I just want to leave. And I'm like, well, so say, you know what? I'm kind of tired. I'm going to leave. She's like, you know what? Next time I think I will. And that's okay. And people will respect that. And if they don't respect that, then maybe they're not in your support circle anyway. Um, Sacrificing fun and reevaluating my connections. So, fun to me is much more broad range than it used to be, that's for sure. I mean, I've always been one to have fun and do playful things. Always found that I have a playful personality, but to me, fun is like sitting and being still, or watching my little guy play trains, or taking a walk on the beach, or having a great conversation, or taking a walk with Matt, or going to crop juice and getting a bunch of yummy stuff, and you know, having a chit chat with my girlfriends. Just left St. Pete and had a great lunch connecting with another lovely, lovely soul. And it's interesting when you surrender to this and stop seeking fun, how beautiful opportunities just come into your world. And again, I could talk about it all day, but being in nature and things like that really, really fuel me. So it's in the beginning, it was hard because we were so used to that, "Hey, let's go out for drinks. Let's go to happy hour. Let's do this. Let's travel here. Let's do this. Let's do" and so our circle has changed. Actually, we have no circle. I'll just put that, like, we have select people that we might hang out with, and but it's really hard because not everyone is in alignment with that, but you learn to be okay with it, and you find different things to do that makes you feel like fuels your fire and makes you feel whole, and it's more about being fulfilled than filling a void, and I think there's a big difference in that, and that's something when you begin or when you're in your healing journey, or for those of you who are there, you understand when you're constantly seeking busy things, I feel like that's when you need to take a step back and ask yourself, "Why? Like, what is it that I need right now?" So, that was a big one. Owning my shit. So, owning my shit has been a big deal. I'm a huge person on accountability. I have a hard time respecting people that don't hold themselves accountable. Respect them as a person, but from a distance. It's been something that the only reason I've been allowed to heal is where I was because I was willing to face what my patterns were, how I was being destructive in my own life, how I was self sabotaging, how I was feeding my addictions, how I was numbing, how I was ignoring or avoiding or projecting. And yeah, I had to own every bit of that. And at first, it was my journal and then my life coach. Then I was able to write the apology letters or say the apologies, or forgiveness letters have been huge for me and owning my stuff. And I've written myself a lot of forgiveness letters over the past couple years. Some of them I burned, which is perfectly fine. And this is one of the exercises I actually gave one of my girlfriends that I'm coaching. And it's very freeing. We're going to do a retreat in March, and I'm super excited. And we're going to do a fun journaling exercise and burn our shit. And I'm super excited for that. Allowing myself and others to feel, did a whole podcast on this one. Just the emotional landscape is crazy. So allowing myself to feel the feelings and really truly process them as they come about and then let them go. Because if we push them down or we try to repress them, that doesn't work. Um, Spirituality is very unique for everyone. And I mentioned I'm not a religious person, but I do call in my guides, my healers. I ask for the guidance and I give the gratitude and the appreciation on a daily basis now. And it's amazing since I've started doing that. I've gotten a lot of prayers answered and a lot of great. Sometimes it's really not what I want to hear and it's not what I expect to hear, but I trust it. I've learned to really trust it. Whatever spirit it is that you believe in, or maybe you're not a believer of any sort, but that's really been something that has allowed me to connect more with myself and just have faith that it's all going to work out and it's all going to handle itself. And it's really been a pivotal point in me being able to release and let go. Um, for the trauma to heal. I mentioned the IET training at the Om Shop. I've spent a lot of time at the Om Shop. I love it there. The ladies are just wonderful. Their sound journeys are great. Their massages and their energy workers are really awesome. Done some palmistry and things like that, which I always find really fascinating. Um, Practicing glimmers and gratitude daily. So, glimmers and gratitude. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this out there, but essentially, like, what was my glimmer today? Having a beautiful lunch with an awesome like-minded soul and really making a connection for future opportunities and friendship there, and being able to teach classes this morning and start my day by helping ladies with movement and teaching an empower yoga class. And those were my glimmers, being able to start my day in a healthy way and snuggling my kids and giving my husband a kiss goodbye. And like the little things, like it's been a beautiful day out. It hasn't been crazy raining. And, um, the little glimmers in life, being able to come here and film this and talk to you guys and share all of this. Daily practice of compassion. I really, really work on that. I try to, if I find myself, I'll be honest, usually the target is my husband. I find myself not being compassionate in some way, shape, or form, or starting to project or feel the feels. I reel it in and I'm like, okay, what part of him could be shut down right now? Or what part of him could be stressed. Even if he's not verbalizing it, you are empathetic and intuitive enough to feel it. So maybe you just show him some grace and compassion and try to communicate the best I can. And if he's not in a space to communicate, that's fine. And same with my kids, really practicing compassion for them. It's back to school week, which is like hell week. It's took the 3-year-old to the eighth graders orientation. He was melting down. He was hot. He was pulling my hair. And, it was all kinds of feels, but he was very overstimulated and it was hot and it was a lot. And, so showing him compassion instead of getting agitated or irritated with him. And, bless her heart, she was a trooper about it and showed him compassion as well. Even though I know she really wanted to stay into her schedule and all that stuff with her friends, but it was really great to see them. I think that trip we took together on our road trip, it really connected them in a beautiful way, and I think that was kind of my life mission this summer, and setting some intentional stuff for them and allowing them to have that level of compassion. The 3-year-old, um, he's bless his heart, he's not quite compassionate yet. He really is though. He's like a lover and a feeler too, but, they just don't understand, so we have to respect their little boundaries. Um Surrendering to the process has been pivotal for me. Just surrendering to all of it, understanding what was going on in my brain, not playing victim, not saying, identifying with it like, "Oh, I have PTSD." It's like, "No, okay, we're gonna fix this, or I'm gonna change this, I'm gonna heal this," and finding all the resources to do that. And that's the biggest difference. I think that sometimes we can label ourselves or identify with things like anxiety, depression, but there's a root to all that. Like people aren't just born with anxiety. There's generational trauma, there's childhood trauma, there are things that lead to that in our lives. And I was never one to settle for those types of diagnoses. I wanted to get to the root because I've just found myself to be really intuitive about that and always felt that there was more and there was more and I was right. So getting the science to back it all up. So I knew I had some anxiety stuff. I knew Matt and I were having some issues with getting along and our lives were changing and evolving and what was it? So holding ourselves accountable, doing the life coaching and the talk therapy with our counselor. And she's the one that suggested the brain scans, and then getting the brain scans and being like, okay, wow, well, we have this going on. And I saw from his brain scan, well, that makes sense as to why I was, it just made everything make sense. Honestly, in my like 10-year goal, I would love to create a foundation that we we would fund these brain scans for people that couldn't afford it. We are blessed to have great resources for healthcare, and I would love to be able to provide people those same resources to some capacity in the long run. So that's in my game plan going forward. But essentially, the science to back it all up, I got brain scans, I did hormone testing, I did endocrine thyroid panels, I did blood allergy testing, I did acupuncture, massage, walking barefoot, teaching aerobics classes and exercise classes, dancing and singing, being in nature, nourishing foods, no processed sugar, fasting, IVs, learned that I have some methylation issues and just really tapping into all of it. It's a big picture. It takes everything. It takes every avenue of your life. It all flows together. So you can heal. And I actually just had lunch with Alejandra Brady, who is amazing, and she does a lot of feng shui for people in their homes. And she explained at lunch, and it made so much sense. You could do all the work, but if your home is chaos, then it's gonna prohibit, it's gonna create a disconnect in your flow. So, it really does. It's like it's been a whole reevaluation from purging our home to, doing the counseling, to doing the science behind it, to changing our relationships. It's been an all-encompassing journey, and there's a lot of you out there listening that have been on this journey with me, so I appreciate you, I love you, I respect you, I honor you. I hope that you can start your own journeys in your own ways. I'm here for that. Um, one thing I've really learned to do is nurture my empathetic side and and understand that it's real and there's science behind that too, and that's the reason my brain is lit up the way it is. And I need to nurture that. I just have a more sensitive nervous system than a lot of other people do, and that's okay. But setting boundaries and learning how to protect that. So, I'm going to conclude today's episode with an empath affirmation. And it is I will protect my energy around draining people. I will learn how to set healthy boundaries. I will learn to say no at the right times. I will listen to my intuition about the relationships that are nurturing for me. And that is huge because your environment really plays a huge part. And I'll tell you, like, it has not been perfect circumstances for me in the past 20 months by any means. However, if I can still heal my brain over 50% with no medication and all of these holistic modalities that I've described to you today, then you can absolutely take charge of your life and do it for yourself in some capacity. Now, I understand that there's a lot of circumstances out there where people will need chemical assistance from medications and whatever it is that's right for you in your own life. I totally respect that. But I just want you to know that you do have the power to heal and you do have the power to change. You just have to make up your mind to take the correct steps and make the sacrifices and prioritize your time and your health and yourself. And I'm going to leave you on that note today. And Crystal Clear website should be coming up pretty soon. It's in the works. If you're interested in any kind of empowerment coaching, transformation coaching, if you want to learn more about my journey, I'll be sharing it on the podcast, obviously. But if you really need some assistance with learning how to start yours, I'm happy to point you in the right direction. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.